All right, come on. That's come on.
Daredevil, man. Don't get comfortable.
That's the message. That's what's crazy. Like, can I just have a win for 1 second, please? Just one time?
You know what though? What I love so much about this is it's doing the thing where it's like, oh yeah, that's Daredevil. Like, welcome to
this
like every time there's a win, there's actually a loss behind it. But I love that even with that, we're still seeing Matt like have kind of his peak moments. Like, we see him just the master of the courtroom and understanding the process so well. And like, it's cool that we can have the loss and the kind of gut punch, and it doesn't have to mean that like Matt is already like spiraling.
Welcome back to Friends from Work, a podcast about all things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, hosted by myself, Kyle Sconowell, and him, my longtime friend from work, Robbie Earl. Yeah, today we're going to be talking about Daredevil Born Again, episode 3, with all kinds of spoilers. So this is your spoiler warning. Here we go. We're going to try to get into all the details of this episode. We are recording this ahead of time. So if something has happened in the last week, we don't know that necessarily, but I anticipate that next week, by the time episode 4 comes out, we will be back in sync with you guys, which probably also means that we won't be having episodes until Wednesday afternoon, because Robbie and I need time to watch it and record it. But I mean, dude, I don't know. I'll start here. I thought that was peak. I for some reason, I just was locked into the court stuff. Like, that was the look at the court that I've wanted. Like, She-Hulk messed with it, but it was always from a lighthearted perspective. It was a totally different thing. It's a comedy. This was like, okay, I can get down with a straight courtroom drama. And then, just like you said, you celebrate a win. It's like Matt finally has things going well. This is what all of season 1 and 3 were like, by the way. Every time something happened, something else happened right after. Season 2 as well. As soon as the Punisher turns himself in, Elektra's in his apartment that episode. It's like there never is like a piece for him, but still, I am nearly, not quite as far, I'm nearly Victor level from the Penguin mad right now with how that went.
Wow.
But I think in the best of ways, like, I mean, you see the parallels, right? It feels similar. But so I just thought the courtroom stuff was amazing, and then a crazy bold ending. And I'm like, okay, so that's how they're going to do this kind of every time, huh?
I'm not going to say this every week. Well, we'll see, I guess. Maybe I will, but I'm not planning to. As I'm watching this show, I keep saying out loud to Candace, like, this is so good. Like, this is so well done. It feels a step up from your average Disney Plus series. And it feels like it is up there so far for me with the high points of Loki season 2. Now, again, the Loki season 2 finale is sort of its own thing, and I feel like that's not a fair comparison. But in terms of like the shows that I have loved the most, that I thought have hit the highest highs most consistently, this is just already there at the top for me. For me, it's really easy to define. This is the first show in a while where I'm going to text my non-MCU fans. Exactly. This is the show that's in the conversation with Severance and the Penguin, and like, this is what it's like. I have chills right now saying that. But like, this is the one where I'm like, I told my brother, I told Grant, I'm texting my dad, I'm texting people going like, okay, like, if you haven't been watching, you don't need to know much. Just come watch this. Like, this is in that same prestige television era. Like, this is going to be a week-to-week thing where we are just locked in to see what's going to happen. Man, and if like, with the reviews being so great all the way through for the finale, and then it just seems to me like, even if the show weren't this good, I think I would feel still excited about season 2, because it looks like that's when they have the full creative team in place and you don't have any weirdness with having to retool things. But I'm like, if this is them having to retool and salvage some prior existing things, like, I just am so confident in this team, and like, Charlie Cox is doing some of the best work I've ever seen him do.
But also it should be noted that then maybe the original team wasn't that far off either. Like despite some of the hype, like if they really did script more of this kind of courtroom thing, it's working for me. If this was a lot of the original, what I just witnessed, I don't think they were that far off. I'm guessing what's going to happen is the new guy, Dario, is that his name? Sorry, excuse me. He basically the new showrunner probably brought in 3 episodes at the end. This is my guess. Where like Karen comes back for a little bit and he's in the Daredevil costume and there's that side of it. I think that's maybe where it was heading. It wasn't going to be about that. And I think they're going to have that at the end. We'll see how well that fits. That's my total guess. My point is just, yes, I'm with you. I trust them, but also shout out to,
oh no, totally.
It probably wasn't as bad as people, were panicking about.
Well, I think a lot of, a lot of the rumors that went around, and you and I talked about this a little bit off air, and it's not worth going super deep into this or deep down this rabbit hole, but there were all these rumors about like what the show would have been. And like, thank God you had Dario and like Benson Moorhead come in and salvage it and make it into this thing that everyone's excited about.
Correct.
But a lot of those like rumored, like, wouldn't this have been terrible plot things we've kind of seen play out and they're kind of great.
Yeah.
So it is hard to gauge. It also just like it's a reminder to be very cautious about any of those narratives.
Quick soapbox here. We're going to take a tangent and then I'm going to ask you a question about the courtroom stuff. But after we shut off our first episode, you and I talked for 20 minutes. And this is just something that both of us as a podcast are passionate about. Mm-hmm. I just don't know how often getting so in the weeds with those rumors is going to enhance your experience. I understand that there are other reasons why people would be into it. And I'm not judging you as a human if you're into it. But Uncle Kyle and Uncle Robbie are here to a little bit suggest that it's just not worth going crazy into that. Like there's not a lot of positives that can come out of that. It's going to set weird expectations or make you mad about something that didn't actually happen. And even if it hits the nail on the head, why don't you want to go into a project with your own expectations and be surprised? Like, think about how fun it would have been to go into Doomsday and just be surprised with everyone who shows up. Why do you want to know ahead of time outside of being able to like discuss like, there was leaked concept art and some people are arguing about if this was intentional. Did you see the concept art leaked?
No.
Okay, well, I'm not going to even say what it is, but it's caused a crazy stir because people, there's even people now who like hated the rumors of RDJ and blah, blah, and now they're like, well, wait, this might actually be sick. And it's like, why even engage in those conversations until you've seen it? It's art. Like, let's give it a chance. I've seen the concept art.
Okay.
But I'm saying more generically, it's art. It's entertainment. Like, it's not a battle of who's right on this stuff. So I just say, like, tread lightly when you go through all those rumors because I just can't see that many positives out of it. If you want to add anything, say it, and then I'm going to transition us.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is, it would be a further tangent because now I'm curious if that's our buddy Andy Parks or if that's Ryan Meinerding or.
All I'll say is there was leaked art online and then people said, oh, that's just fan art, but it looks sick. It looks amazing, by the way. And then, but it does reveal some kind of wild things. I won't say it, but people are like, oh, that's just fan art.
Yeah, that's a big deal, though.
Well, but then rumors came out like right away. Those tweets got deleted, and like basically there was enough backlash from Marvel that is like, oh, maybe that was real because why do they care that gets deleted? So, but the thing that did leak looked dope as all get out. So it's not a bad leak. And so then there was a pushback of people saying, I think they leaked it intentionally.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Or like maybe someone had the idea and they're like, okay, just do it. And then we'll act like it wasn't. I don't know what, but that's not my point. My point is like
very Mayor Fisk way of going about it.
Yeah.
Accidental leaks.
My point is it's a little weird to get so worked up about a show like Daredevil Born Again before you've seen a single second of it and to even know what was right or wrong at all. Anyways, you are a lawyer. I'm curious from strictly a lawyer perspective, how accurate is that? Like if you were in New York City and you were taking a homicide case, is this pretty close or not?
I mean, that's one of the things that, now granted, I don't do criminal law. I had to know enough criminal law to pass that class and then again to pass the bar exam. And that's sort of the extent of it. But a lot of the trial procedure rules apply across both civil and criminal cases. And yeah, I mean, this is one where it, even more so than She-Hulk, in part because She-Hulk was a comedy, it feel like She-Hulk, I thought, really captured the law firm culture, like the big law thing of like the different like task items that she would have on her screen, and how we talked about like Charles Soule kind of helped, or like the things she would be reading were actual publications that lawyers read. But this, in terms of the courtroom stuff, yeah, I mean, I know that they have some lawyers consulting, and I think at least one is in the writer's room in some capacity, and you can feel that. Like what I love is you've got kind of that like Sorkin drama, but you've also got that kind of Sorkin like stickler for process thing, which is not like he varies across the spectrum, but I think that's kind of when he's at his best with like A Few Good Men. And yeah, it's like you have those moments, but they never come at the expense of believability, which is really hard to do, because you can either make it too believable and boring, or really exciting, and it just feels like not just because you're a lawyer, but just because it like strains credibility and then kind of pulls you out of it. But here, like whenever he's even in episode 2, I think, when he's talking about the Rule 403, like weighing prejudice versus probative value, like talking about
the judge, right?
Yeah, like whether they would talk about the white tiger before Matt kind of reverses course. Like that is an actual analysis that I've argued like a bunch when you're in court, where it's like, this shouldn't even come in, because if the jury knows about it, it's going to taint the way that they view everything else, and it's not relevant enough to justify that. But then sometimes if it's a really relevant thing, you have to recognize that it is prejudicial, like it is going to taint it, but you can't not put that in front of the jury, because it goes too much to the heart of the dispute. And so the way that they've approached those things, they've all felt pretty realistic, both from my time like working as a lawyer, but also as a clerk for a federal judge, where it's like you just see those kind of conferences that Matt and the DA are having with the judge. Like that stuff is very, like that is kind of how that plays out.
This is how I know the show is up my alley, and that what you're saying about the courtroom stuff is accurate. I took a note while the jury was walking back in from deliberating about it. I took a note. I'm legit nervous to hear the result. And I think those legitimate nerves as they're reading the result of the case is, one, a telling sign of how good of a job they did telling the case, because I'm invested. Yeah. And I think they did a really good job with the other lawyer too. Like raising good points, where it's like, yeah, Matt is kind of like too, like, I don't know. And then, they say the result and the celebration and stuff afterward. I was just legit nervous in that I don't know where this is going. And so then they celebrate and it's really moving. And then literally under 5 minutes later, he gets assassinated, shot in the head. I'm just like, okay, yeah, this is my genre, because I didn't predict. I literally thought there was a 50-50 shot he's going to be guilty, and Matt's going to have lost the case, and that's going to be like the trial that Matt has to go through. I lost this case. But instead, Matt wins the case, but then he still gets killed. And Matt told him not to put the costume back on, and he did, because it's who he is. And then and Matt speaking from that perspective is so funny, and it's just beautiful irony. And
you like don't know if he's going to tell him or not. For a second. But I like another example of that, the same thing, is them trying to get the witness to the courthouse. I was so like, was legitimately anxious.
Yes. So season one of Daredevil, or is very similar?
Yeah, I think so.
One of those. Also felt like The Dark Knight, kind of like the music playing and like, the hijacking sequence.
And I loved like talking about kind of subverting expectations there. Like I really thought that the witness was going to get killed. Yep. And then instead of that, he actually gets to the courthouse, and you feel so much victory in that moment. And then he lies.
Yes.
It's like the like just this episode had so many kind of rises and falls, and they all felt like none of it felt like too much. Like it all felt pretty organic. But yeah, by the end, that verdict, you're like, it feels like you've been watching this play out over a whole season, but it's been, less than 2 full episodes.
I know. I don't want to get down this. I don't want to go down this road or have this conversation, but the first episode was so shocking, and that's what made me call you, and I'm emotionally invested in all this stuff. But this might have been my favorite just episode as far as the quality from the get-go. Like, so now that I ended with the ending, which, well, real quick, let's say, the actual murder is just so brutal to me because it seemed like Hector was a legit dude. And I really thought when he was putting on the stuff at the end, it was going to be like, maybe someone sees that he's doing it and tells Fisk or something. I didn't think we were going to go that fast in that, he hears a little girl, he's out, that's who he is, he's out to save her and he gets shot. Just like, and then the credits, do you notice that? Being
with the tree frog?
The frog and the beach. Yeah. And that's all they play. Come on, that is dark, man.
Oh, it's brutal.
It's so sad.
Yeah,
like that.
It took me a second
to
realize what I was hearing, and then I was like, "Oh no,
that is so sad."
It's
unbelievable.
It's really sad because that actor also passed away in the course of production. So the actor that plays Hector, I think, died in December, Christmas Eve, 2023. Which also speaks to how long this has been. Okay,
hold on. First of all, I thought, like, literally, I said this last episode, I think he's doing a great job.
Oh, he was so good.
This guy's doing
man.
amazing.
He was so good. Yeah.
Did they kill him? Not to be crass. Did they kill him on the show because he was gone?
I don't think so.
Because it could have been a stunt double inside the costume, right? And then.
Oh, I guess that's true. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's something that.
But here's the thing. I doubt it. Because that kind of seems like that'd be a little kind of like flippant or disingenuous to the fact that the real guy died. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I feel like if they knew he was going to die, they probably would have written a different ending for him. Like he went to the beach. Don't you think?
Right.
Like he would have gotten away and like went to the beach.
Yeah. No, I think that's probably right.
I could be wrong on that, but wow, that's really sad because he's doing a great job. There was a part of me that in general was just even within the show was sad that he's gone now. Because I was liking that storyline. Like I was liking the not tension, but the communication between him and Matt about this.
Yeah.
What it means to be a hero. I was loving.
Again, it feels, I keep thinking about the Defenders, like the just the Netflix universe, not the show specifically, and how I'm just not sure we ever got a moment of kind of like kinship in that whole process like we have here just between Matt and Hector, where it's like the like Matt kind of understanding where he's coming from, and it's like there's like a nuance to all of it that is so refreshing. But it's again, having seen them try this across these long seasons of long episodes. I mean, what, like almost a dozen seasons of things total, everything that came out of the Netflix era, like, and I don't think that they were able to ever quite crack the code in the way that it seems like they are here. Like even the thing for me, and then we can kind of move on to some other topics because we talked about the courtroom stuff a lot, but
no, this is where I wanted to start.
I think that it was just so like, they did such a great job of showing why Daredevil has to exist. Like it's what we talked, like the She-Hulk quote that we talked about.
Oh, it's so true. And showing Matt wrestling with it still. He's like a little bit tempted. And this might be the thing that tips him over the edge where it's like, they still killed this guy? Are you kidding me? And now he's like, I have to go beat people up. Well, but he's like flirting with the idea of like, maybe I need to go do it.
Like even him getting the witness there, and like he not only does everything right, like by the books, he also he stretches it enough to like get this guy in, like do some questionable things, and that they're like giving him drugs to get him like onto the stand. And then like even then there's just too much corruption within the system, and he's staring at this wall of cops. And then it's like whenever he's able to salvage that and actually win the case, despite all of the unfairness that's kind of baked into that, then it still doesn't matter because Hector's killed, which is, by the way, straight from the comic storyline that this was sort of adapting. That's kind of what happens to Hector after the trial there. So it's very like it's this. You see him, like you're saying, like asking that question, like, okay, well, then, like, what's the point of like everything Matt Murdock did and struggled to like accomplish in these last days leading up to the trial was for nothing. Like, I mean, I guess the guy has a like a legacy now, you know, of not being a murderer, but you wonder what Matt's like, what, yeah, if that will be the thing that pushes him to put the costume back on.
Who's all allowed to be inside the courtroom? Can you get a ticket for that? Can you just walk in? Could I just walk into a court and witness it? Like,
for the most part.
So like all the cops are just showing up because they're interested in the result. There's no like law that says like they can't be there.
No, unless like there are certain proceedings that will be sealed.
That means no one's
like,
there.
Right. Or like only people that have signed on to a certain confidentiality order or something. But generally the idea is that it's a public, you know, you're paying for it, like you're a taxpayer. So you have the opportunity to walk in and see the system at work if you want, unless there are like specific confidential things that are in play.
Okay, last big point, then we'll take a quick break. I interrupted you, so I'm just going to let you finish. This is some of the best Charlie Cox, man. Wow, like 3 episodes in,
yeah,
he is locked in a way that he wasn't quite right away at the beginning of Daredevil season 1.
It's wild to me how much, like, I've been going back and reading some Daredevil stuff ahead of this, and then I'm actually in the middle of rereading the Zdarsky run right now. And it's the first time that, like, I always liked Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, but one thing that's kind of weird about being a comics reader is you like have the version of the character that you like see on the page, and you kind of like, there's a voice for them that you hear in your head. You're probably experiencing this some, like, as you've been reading the Fantastic Four comic, and you kind of realize like for me, Tobey Maguire is in a lot of ways like the ultimate Spider-Man because of my generation, but also he's not, because like the comics version, like I don't hear in like a Tobey Maguire voice. And my point in saying that is like you can be really good and be good casting and it still just doesn't quite click as like this is the comic character. But this season, like I could not imagine a better interpretation. Like it's like they pulled Matt Murdock from off the page of the comics.
Woo!
And something about it just like clicked in with Cox's. I mean, obviously he you know what though, like he has talked about how he's read and reread those comics. Like, so I don't think that that's by accident. Like I think it is like an immersion thing for him at this point. But the one other thing I wanted to say, just as a shout out, to kind of close out the courtroom stuff, how great was that shot of him sitting in the courtroom where it's like he's sitting in a cathedral,
the light coming in.
Yeah, it's like that was a beautiful, like,
but again, he's holding that Daredevil thing too.
Yeah. It's like it could have been straight from season 1, one of those episodes where he's like sitting in the pew and Father Lanham's up and comes and talks to him and offers him a cappuccino or whatever. But it's like they're clearly evoking that, but within the context of the courtroom, which then brings in like Matt's faith in like a higher power, but also faith in the system and the way that like his kind of like his insistence in holding on to his religious faith is really like coming from a similar place as his insistence in believing that the legal system can actually create just outcomes. And so it's a perfect parallel, and I think it's like thematically resonant, but also just visually was like a really creative, like satisfying image.
Great call out. We'll be right back. Okay, for the back half of this episode, I now want to go through the front half of the Daredevil episode, starting with, I just love the theme. I said it last week.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the credits, and I'm a sucker for these dumb choirs. They keep putting choir and stuff, and I'm into it. Anytime a choir comes in, it's like, it reminds me of He Who Remains from Loki. Like, Laura Cartman actually has done a good job with the choir stuff, even in the Marvels, etc.
Oh yeah.
But I'm just a sucker for whenever it happens. So I'm going to love the Fantastic Four thing, I think, because there's a lot of choir there. But I just love it. I love the theme. So I wanted to say that. It's crazy to me, this struggle of Fisk versus Vanessa, and how far we've come in that, like, Vanessa doesn't want to change and Fisk wants to change how they do things is such a weird dynamic and something we haven't seen thus far.
But again, I like the fact that Fisk is really trying to, like, he's trying to be not necessarily clean.
Yeah, because then at the end, it's like, so he just wants a higher goal, but he's still going to do the same stuff to get there, apparently.
Well, I feel like he's a classic ends justify the means. I think Fisk genuinely thought, even in season 1 of Daredevil, that he was doing the right thing for the city. Like, I think he also was willing, like, it was all flowing to his benefit. So it was a twisted outlook, but I do think he thought that, like, he feels just as strongly as Matt does that he's doing the right thing. So when you have that kind of certainty, I did wonder, like, is it for sure the case, you think, that guy killed the White Tiger at Fisk's behest?
It's got to be, right? There's no reason he's literally talking to BB. He sees the result.
There's the part of me that I'm like, man, you're really
he's not going to
forecasting that, though.
Well, he's not going to say that it's him.
Well, sure, but he's like giving it's like to give an interview where you're like, this will have to be dealt with, and then the guy gets murdered. I would think would not be, especially with someone like BB, who seems like she's going to be kind of pulling at threads like that.
Well, maybe that'll be the twist. Maybe Fisk will be surprised next week. He'll be like, dang, that's not where I was going with this. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, don't you love the way that they're amping up this, like, battle between Fisk and Murdoch again, and it's in such a different way? Like,
it's kind of almost like Fisk is begging him or egging him on to be Daredevil again, so that then he can legally kill him. Like, be like, well, I said no vigilantes,
Yeah,
so that's what he gets.
It's just like, I love that, but it's like both of them kind of operating like within the bounds of their systems. Yeah, it's like they're kind of, like, to go back to that first conversation at the diner, like, so far they are battling each other, like, in totally above board ways for the most part. Like, it's not Daredevil and the Kingpin. It really is like Matt, defense attorney, and Wilson Fisk, mayor. And so it's this, like, I think it makes him mad to see Matt just get, like, a legitimate win.
Yeah. I did love that. He was mad at, and we couldn't have that dynamic before because he didn't know who he was in those other seasons.
Yeah.
So now it's like, he's legit mad at Matt. Like, dang it. He's doing
and how unique is that, like, tension also? This, because we talked about how the MCU doesn't have that many secret identities anyway, but it's one thing that they've, like, always had to figure out a way to juggle in the comics, because at some point you're like, okay, Kingpin knows who Daredevil is. Like, this can't just continue to be the thing. But there is a long time in the comics, like, after Kingpin is found out and tried to destroy Daredevil, when they just are at this stalemate where it's like he knows who he is, but he won't tell anybody else because he wants to be the one to ultimately take him down if anyone's ever going to. So it's this kind of weird, like, again, what they're capturing in this series. Like that they know everything about each other and they're just not really going to do anything about it.
I love the line when the drug addict guy goes, "Should I be worried?" And he goes, "Yep." Because there was a gun. I wrote down, "Let's freaking go with the Deke." What you were talking about earlier, the courtroom. Like, I was like, dang it, he's not going to make it. They're going to be screwed. And then he shows up and I'm like, let's go. Matt thought of it. I mean, if you watch the other seasons of Daredevil, Matt's gone through a lot of that kind of stuff. So he's probably prepared for the system is broken, so I got to work around that. My question is, who is Adam? Twice now.
I had that question
twice
down here
now,
too.
Vanessa has brought up, and Fisk has brought up, like, I know you did something with Adam. Is that like an affair she had? Is that another business she was running? Are we supposed to know who Adam is? I don't think we're supposed to know who it is, right? I haven't missed something.
So. No. I mean, I think if it may be something that goes back to comics that I'm just not familiar with, but it's not one that, like, that's not a character that I think we would need to know about in the context of the show.
Another thing I think they're so genius with is, like, those counseling sessions, all it's doing is it is actually just ever so slightly making you feel for Fisk or humanizing them. Because, like, I think he genuinely is sad he's losing his wife. And that part of him, I'm like, oh, that's too bad. And I'm like, wait, no, this is Fisk. Don't feel bad. But that's that's what makes it so smart,
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Like, and it's great additional time with Heather, where you're kind of getting a better look at her in different contexts, not just as Matt's girlfriend, which is nice.
But that scene between them at the end was really sweet too. Like, Heather has like a really nice sensitivity to Matt. To do like that. Not that I thought they would do this, but Foggy dies in the first episode and it was a crazy bold call. I think it's smart to do things like that, to bring him back up, to maybe even occasionally give a flashback with Foggy later on in the season or something, just to remind the audience that, oh, it's a big deal to Matt too. Like, if you were a Foggy fan and you're depressed, Matt's depressed too. Like, it's something that happened and he couldn't stop it. And so, like, little things like bringing Foggy up or Matt actually speaking about it with Heather, the toast, I was really moved by that. So I'm liking their relationship. I'm liking where she's at, and I like them bringing back Foggy.
It's a great balance with
Samwise.
It's a great balance with that because I think it could have been too much of a slog. Like, Foggy dies and then the whole next half of the season is just like him
Matt's
getting
depressed.
over it.
He won't talk to anybody. Like,
and we've gotten that so many times now that it's really nice that we did get the jump forward, that he's doing well, but that we also get moments for him to kind of reflect on the loss and who Foggy was. And
the jump is really clutch because you probably just assume, he had a really tough, like you're saying, 4 or 5 months where he was just depressed. And then
when Karen says that, like, he wouldn't talk to her.
Yep. Then he probably slowly started working out of it. He started taking cases again. He's good at it. He starts winning some cases. He's making more money, having to move on, meet new people. So it's just fine for me to be like, fast forward a year. And that's where he's at. And it's a perfect spot, like you said, to be. Like he is moving on. He is successful, but he still misses Foggy. I only have 2 other things. I just got to say this one more time. I wrote down, I love Hector, because I did love Hector. Rest in peace. Yeah. And then I have one other thing, and this is probably a nothing burger, okay? Nothing burger. But they were going over the testimonies of all of the cops about White Tiger, and they were saying, I have testimonies from Reyes and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And one of them they say is Morales. And wow. And I can't help but think, like, is there a little bit there? Because we know that in the history, Miles Morales, like in the video game, his dad is a cop. In the second video game, his mom runs for mayor, I think.
Like city council
or something.
Yeah.
So kind of involved. And then in different iterations, like in Across the Spider-Verse, his dad's a cop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, obviously. And then in Spidey and His Amazing Friends, Miles' dad's a park ranger, but his mom is a detective, I think. My point is, I just wonder, do you throw the name Morales out for a cop willy-nilly in this universe? I don't know. So I just thought that was interesting.
Although I feel like his name is doesn't his
In the game, it's Jefferson Davis, right?
yeah,
For
which is
sure.
I think, and in the comics,
It is.
so.
Okay. But
he
his
would
mom goes by Morales, and she is
Yeah.
sometimes in those positions, I think.
That's fair.
In different
That's fair.
iterations, I'm saying they've kind of messed
Yeah.
with what his parents do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying,
No, it's a good.
I feel like someone in the room should be like, if it's not a hint, like let's maybe just choose a random different name.
Yeah.
Choose Smith or something,
I do. Was it Sergeant Mahoney? Is that the?
So I know what
the
you're going to
guy
say. From what?
From the earlier seasons, the Netflix seasons.
Oh, see, I was going to say, I thought that the like abduction scene felt so much like The Dark Knight, and in the Dark Knight Christopher Nolan trilogy, it's Reyes is one of the cops, and
and
Morales.
Yeah.
And that's the same names here, which I'm not saying there's a crossover there, but I'm like, that's weird.
That is, or just like a fun shout out for the writers.
Yeah, maybe they're like, hey, this does feel like The Dark Knight for a second.
Yeah. But there was that one cop that they worked with a lot in the first couple seasons.
The black guy, the detective. He gets promoted. Apparently, he's in this show. He's back.
He is.
I think so, or maybe it's season 2.
Okay.
I think he's coming back.
Okay, I like him.
No, okay. Wow, you're putting me on the spot. I think Maroney was kind of the bad flaky DA, right? That like they ultimately shut down.
No, I thought that's.
I can't. No, who is it? Let's look it up because we look.
I thought that was Reyes, maybe.
Oh, okay. I'm not editing this episode. It's live, so I'm gonna look this up, or one of us talk while the other looks it up.
Okay, fair. Well, I did want to ask, like, what your interpretation of the Punisher vest was. Like,
okay,
that's not Frank, right? That shot White Tiger.
Dude, that would be devastating if Frank
feel
had
like
resulted to that.
Like, I just don't think he would.
Blake Tower was kind of the flaky DA, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And then who was his boss?
Brett Mahoney. Yep. I think Brett. Oh, gosh. Now I don't know. I can't remember if it's Blake or Brett that are coming back in this season. You hear me? It's one of the two. Yeah. Brett Mahoney is played by Royce Johnson.
That's who I was thinking of originally.
I'm trying to see. He was a detective. On Daredevil. Okay. Wow. Sorry. Wow. Yeah. So again, I'm not crazy well versed in the Netflix stuff because I've only watched Daredevil and The Defenders. I didn't watch Punisher yet, and I didn't watch the other stuff. So you would know way more than me. I'm also not a comic guy, so I'm kind of here just to fill in what I see from a MCU perspective. But that's supposed to be the Punisher's skull, right? Are they all wearing the Punisher's logo?
Well, I mean, because they do have like those
tattoos.
We've seen the tattoos,
but that's the Punisher logo.
Yeah.
But that's kind of that's against everything that he was about. He was an ex-cop that's pissed at those people.
I mean, that's the funny thing is kind of as a real world thing, like there are cops who have tattoos like that in the real world, like have or will have like a Punisher thing on their car, like at least in a personal capacity.
That's a real thing.
It's like there's some controversy. It's one of the reasons the character has been hard to adapt. Is it's become kind of this like tricky symbol because in the comics it's one thing and it's a character, but then it becomes this sort of like do what has to be done sort of thing.
Kind of like a little bit like the controversy around the Joker movie.
Yes.
How people felt like it's celebrated.
Yeah. Well, and like Jerry Conway is the Marvel writer that created the Punisher again in the context of Amazing Spider-Man. And he has spoken out about how he almost regrets creating the character because of kind of the
like took on a life
whole
of its
culture
own.
that it's taken on. Yeah. And I mean, I think he's very happy with what the character has been like within the pages of the comic, but he doesn't like the idea that it's like, yeah, to your point, kind of like the Todd Phillips Joker thing. Like it's a sort of like symbol for something that is not actually even in line with what like the character stands for. Plus the character, you know, in the comics started out as a villain and was ultimately like brought back into like anti-hero territory.
Okay, so excuse my naivete here. So in real life, people just, I guess the argument is they kind of rally behind like this kind of vigilante justice, like I'm going to do the right thing at all costs kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I
that's
think
like what the symbol means to the
like, I mean, specifically, I think like the cops like have been known to do it as kind of a like.
But he's not a cop, right? He's an ex-military guy, I guess. But Frank,
right? Yeah, which is why it's sort of also strange. Okay. But yeah, just
that's
in
what
the
I'm
real
missing,
world,
I guess.
In the U.S., it's like you can Google like cop cars where people have like put the Punisher symbol on them.
And my point is, for those cops, what are they thinking?
I think what they're thinking is like it's a like do what you have to do.
Right. That's what I
like. Okay. In the name of justice kind of thing. Obviously they would not say like break the law, but I think the idea is like we are like this is how hardcore we're going to be about like taking down bad guys. So
the only thing I can think of is, you know, we have seen that Fisk and Frank have somewhat of a relationship from that prison sequence. And so maybe Fisk has gotten to Frank to continue this work. I think it'd be, oh yeah, man, that's so hot button topic, I guess, if that's a real world thing, because you almost wonder if that's what they're playing with in the show, that like Frank's cause has been hijacked and people now, there's like gang cop members basically that are doing what they see as just at all costs, like murdering Hector. And maybe Frank won't like that. They're using his symbol, maybe like kind of like the writer basically.
Yeah. No, I mean, that would be smart. That would be really smart storytelling because it's a conversation that's happened so much, like behind the scenes, but also kind of publicly about the art for them to, you know, it's like life imitating art.
That's like She-Hulk being episode ahead on Twitter, you know, that's kind of the same.
Yeah. And, you know, I do think like Dario being the showrunner on Punisher, I can imagine him having a very specific
He's heard a lot about it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah, that would be probably cooler and more interesting, and probably what's going to happen more than just Frank is doing it, right? Like that doesn't seem like Frank at all. Like Frank had multiple chances to kill Daredevil and never wanted to, never did.
Yeah.
And so this guy, White Tiger, just gets exonerated and celebrated as kind of a hero of his neighborhood. That is not Frank's MO. Like the guy just is found not guilty to go kill him. So either Frank is being pressured in an insane way, although he has nothing left to lose, Frank. So either he's being pressured by Fisk, or it's like what we're saying. It's other people that have hijacked Frank's symbol.
Like it seems like they would have shown his face, right? If that were actually supposed to be a Frank reveal. Yeah, like I feel like it's left intentionally ambiguous because of. But yeah, I mean, I also think
I kind of hope that Frank sees what's going on. Matthew needs his help, and it's Frank and Matthew together trying to stop this kind of stuff. That's what I want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, there are some really fun team ups like that in the pages of Daredevil comics where it's like they are ostensibly accomplishing the same thing, so they're sort of aligned, but it's one of those like sort of like Matt with Elektra where like they're fighting together, but Matt's like constantly making sure that Frank isn't killing anybody. And so it's sort of this like they're like together, but also like there's still the tension.
It's like one of those famous things where whenever someone throws someone off a roof, Matt would like loop him in or something and catch him.
Yeah. I think
did you see they're making a special presentation about Frank?
Oh, right. We haven't even talked about that.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it's going to be like Werewolf by Night, right? Like an hour and a half kind of thing.
I think so.
And maybe that will be filling the gaps between where we see him here and what he had been doing, maybe.
Yeah. I think I'm really excited about that also because I think it's from the director of We Own the City, the HBO series that's from the same folks that did The Wire, I believe. So it's kind of like this.
That's a big
It's supposed to
deal.
be really great. The series stars John Bernthal, so
Who's really great.
There's kind of a crossover there. Yeah, so I think it gives me an excuse to go back and finally watch that because I've never seen it, but I've always heard really good things. But that seems like exactly the vibe you would want for a special like this.
Last tangent. I don't know John Bernthal's career very well, but it feels like he's kind of having like a resurgence. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you saw, he just got casted in Nolan's new movie. The Odyssey.
No, that's great though. Man, that's fun.
He's back here. He's getting a special presentation. So I don't know. I've seen more and more of him as of the last couple of years than I had, when he was doing this.
Yeah. He's got a great role in The Bear also.
Okay.
Which is fast becoming a source for Marvel castings. And
yeah, true.
The Walking Dead is the first place I remember seeing John Bernthal. Did you ever watch that?
No, I didn't. Like some of those crazy long legacy series I never got on board with, and it's not because I was anti it. I just never jumped on the ship, and that's probably how people feel with Marvel a lot of times. Like the train left, and then it was like, I'm not gonna. They're on season 5 of Walking Dead. I'm not going back through all of them. I'm not,
no, it's
interested.
Yeah,
in them.
I feel that way.
That's about all I had. Short and sweet. I'm loving it.
Yeah,
I'm loving it.
I really am too. Like, I'm with you in that 2 and 3 both. I think I've liked more than 1. In part just because I like what I like where the show's living. Like I like the I liked the premiere to get things going, but I like the actual meat of it. So I've been really happy on that front. I had one question for you.
Okay.
This is probably not a fair thing to ask you, but I just didn't know if it crossed your mind.
Oh boy.
Having seen probably some of the trailer stuff, you've seen what Muse looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It's striking to me how similar that is with the White Tiger suit that they create here. And one of the things that makes Muse really interesting as a villain is he is this he's like a Banksy serial killer. Like he does everything it's always a statement, like he's doing these art pieces. And so I think we got a hint of that in episode 1 whenever we briefly see someone doing spray paint. I don't know if that's supposed to be like foreshadow, not necessarily Muse himself, but kind of foreshadowing, because there's a big thing within the Mayor Fisk storyline of Muse almost like trolling Fisk with his art installations. And I'm just wondering, because a lot of that in the comics is rooted in, it's like Fisk goes anti-vigilante, and then Muse kind of takes up this sort of like populist / anarchist take on like Fisk is trying to take down vigilantes. So he tries to create this like swell of support for vigilantes, not because he's like a hero and wants that, but just because, again, he's like kind of just messing with Fisk. And so I'm saying all that to say
that's the most I've ever heard about Muse, by the way. So that's my first ever hearing that. Keep going.
Oh, fair. It's a really interesting character, and that's a very high level description of one of the storylines. But I'm just wondering if, because there's some crossover there with the kind of vigilante controversy, I wonder if his costume in the show is going to be meant to like intentionally recall White Tiger, because obviously this is now going to be, following this trial, a massive like lightning rod moment,
like a rallying cry for vigilantes now,
because it's like the like blood, looking like blood dripping down from the eyes of the mask.
What a good call by you. I don't know enough about the characters. I just saw the trailer and thought, they look kind of similar. It almost gets confusing in the trailer of who's who.
I wonder. I mean, it would make sense.
That would be a good call. Yeah. Look at you.
We'll see. It could just be like a totally nothing burger, but it would be like it would be thematically consistent.
Okay, so I didn't even know anything about that character, and so I'm now processing that really quickly. That's kind of cool to me that it's kind of a Fisk villain. I kind of assumed it was just like a third party, kind of like Poindexter was in season 3, where it's like he's just trying to kill Matt whenever Matt's Daredevil for some reason. But that's cooler to me if it's like he's actually doing some stuff that Matt's okay with, but in a horrible way, kind of thing.
Well, and it's like, it's the second big arc with Muse, the first time you meet him, it is more just he's doing these horrifying things.
Yeah.
And
Not
calling
that he's
them
doing
art.
stuff. Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
but then
Not
the
that
second
Matt's
time
okay with,
you
but
see
that
him,
it's helping Matt's cause in some way.
Right. It's like once Fisk gets into office, it kind of, I think, just given the way that the show is being unfurled, like I like in the comics when Muse is first introduced, Fisk isn't mayor yet, so I think that we're sort of jumping more to that type of story. Although I'm sure we will still get, like, I've heard Muse on this show is terrifying, and
Charlie Cox himself said that in an interview.
I know, like, Chip Zdarsky said that after he saw the episodes that he saw. It's I mean, it's a really good villain, and like, I think lends itself to like really creepy television. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that is like the through line.
Oh gosh, dude. I'm just sitting here wrapping my mind around all of it because this show has already been so good for me. Like, this is right up my alley. And I'm also just thinking, like, what if these things you're talking about, like, what if they had some aces up their sleeve still that we don't even know about? Like,
yeah,
if it stays contained like this and it's about Matt and Fisk in New York, that's amazing. I'm already going to give it a really high score. Yeah. But what if they have a couple aces up their sleeve that, like, we talked about, like, what if it is actually setting up some other stuff that we just didn't see? What if I'm right on the Morales thing? Like, that's the kind of stuff where it's like, this could be crazy. It might not be that. I mean, it might not be that, but I didn't know about Muse. I'm sitting here thinking about it. I'm thinking, like, if he's pro vigilante, like, who else could that affect, kind of thing.
Well, and on that front, my one more question, then we're done on my end. But I was thinking you may know this because you've seen Brave New World again more recently. Timeline wise, like, we know now that this is right after New Year's Day. Like, they had the special election, and they've talked about, like, the Hector stuff happened on New Year's Eve, I think.
But I always get confused. What year are we? Current year?
I think so. I think now in Daredevil, this should be like as far forward as we've been, right? But I don't know what time of year is Brave New World supposed to take place?
Well, let me think. It's pretty outside. The cherry blossoms have blossomed.
Right.
So probably April, March, right?
Yeah, that's a good,
because he's elected. We see that in late November, right? Or the inauguration would be at the end of January. So maybe some time passes and it's like late February and stuff's starting to bloom.
Yeah.
Which would basically be real time, maybe?
Yeah, I guess that's true. And because it's also like this
is where Lance can help. Lance can help.
Yeah, I'm only asking because without spoilers for Brave New World, in case people are listening to this and haven't seen it, I do wonder if the events of that movie, just the fact that there is a Red Hulk that kind of has this very public, like, rage, what's the word I'm looking, outburst, like, if that would connect to this at all. Like, if Fisk is going to be on this, like, this is what happens when you give these people this power kick.
Peak bloom for the blossom trees is late March.
Okay. So it could just be, this could wind up running.
Say what you said again, because I missed it. Repeat it.
Well, no, I'm just thinking, like, in that speech where Fisk talks about, someone wearing a spider suit and a skull on their chest and Daredevil, like, I wonder if he is trying to move in this direction, and then you have, like, a Hulk ripping apart the White House in the midst of this entire conversation. It would be a really nice political point for Fisk to point to, like, to say, look, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, you have these people that are out of control. You need, like, and our own president is compromised by this. Like, we need to.
Interesting. It is. It is cold in this Daredevil season, so that could line up. Like, theoretically, if right now in Daredevil we're actually a little bit before those events, like, this could be late February and Brave New World is early March. Maybe it's coming, kind of thing. Theoretically,
that could.
I just noticed today the guy who murders those, the small gang war. he says, quite nippy outside today, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So it's not warm. It's not summer.
This is, again, I'm not going to be upset if they don't do this because there are so many things that have to happen for it to all line up. But that to me feels like a really easy, like, that's the kind of thing that you see happen a lot in the comics, because in the comics, you don't have like all these months of lead time to make sure that you like have all the references in that you need. Someone can just write it and then it's in there. But like to just have these little, like, this is what's happening in DC and this is what's happening with Thunderbolts.
One last thing too. We haven't been given any indication that even Matthew knows Peter Parker, right? Or that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Oh, right.
Like
yeah.
when he said Spider-Man,
right?
well, yeah, like no one ever said like, you all know Pete, or like, yeah, exactly. Because of the spell, I'm saying, like, right. They're still in line with that, I think.
Yeah. And I think, which I also love, because that, like
Matthew doesn't give any like facial reaction when he says that.
Yeah.
Something else came up. I can't remember what the scene was. It came up in front of Matthew. And he doesn't go like, oh yeah.
And that must be like specifically there. Like I'm guessing, well, we know this, like Multiverse Madness, Strange remembers the multiversal thing with Spider-Man, but he doesn't remember that Spider-Man was Peter Parker. But I feel like in the case of Matt Murdock, he
was literally representing Peter Parker as Spider-Man.
Yeah, like I wonder if he just, the way the spell works there, he just doesn't remember.
Just remember that
any of
even
that.
Event. Yeah. Right.
Or maybe he remembers representing like Happy.
Yeah. Or like there was this Peter kid there, but I don't remember why, you know?
Because it's like, that's like kind of how Happy is in No Way Home. Like he remembers knowing Spider-Man. And he remembers dating Spider-Man's aunt. But
Peter's right there and
Yeah. So maybe it is. But that would be a fun thing to explore if we ever do get the like long-awaited Daredevil Spider-Man team up. Although I guess Peter wouldn't know that that's like, he doesn't know that Matt's Daredevil, so he wouldn't know that that's who that is either. They're kind of like on the same playing field now.
There could be a moment where Peter is in mask and Matthew gets his helmet ripped off and Peter would be like, Matthew? And then Matthew would be like, do I know you? You know, kind of, right?
Well, and or he like sees Matt on TV or something.
I mean, that's the fun of it, right? Is like, as long as they hold to that, it's kind of back to square one for Spider-Man. So,
and that is, that's why it's such a great, it feels like this is who Spider-Man should be. Like this guy that's out in the city that Fisk kind of hates, that's people view as like creepy and maybe not totally trustworthy, but not because he's like at the center of a controversy forever, like he is at the end of Far From Home and the start of No Way Home. Just like he's this guy that's like,
it's also why like they could do some stuff that would just be so chill inducing. Like without even showing him, I wonder if they could legally do something where Matt as Daredevil arrives to a crime scene and guys are webbed up to a pole.
Yeah.
Like, could you do something like that?
I mean,
you know what I'm saying though?
I mean, I would think that if you can talk about Spider-Man in the way that Fisk does here, and Sony doesn't mind that, then I would think that
the whole Sony thing is so funny because they shouldn't mind any of it. All it's going to do is increase Spider-Man awareness. Like more and more people will watch it. So
it's up to like, I mean, it's like, I wonder I don't know what the terms of the deals are now moving forward, or the deal, or however they've structured it. But yeah, I mean, because if there wasn't a rights issue, then it still wouldn't even be a money issue because they could do some stuff without Tom Holland. Like they could literally just have like a different stunt double swing by. Yeah.
And they don't like stop to interact, but it's enough to be like, oh, wow, he's here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
you could do that kind of stuff all the time. Or like I'm saying, the webs, or you see his shadow, or he swings over or something.
Or even, I mean, you could use pre-existing footage and just like have it playing on like a TV somewhere or something behind Matt in a bar, and that would still be great.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, like,
Spider-Man stopped 4 bank robberies today, blah, blah, blah.
Well, especially because one of the things that I think is always...
Or a Daily Bugle, and it's J. Jonah Jameson talking about Spider-Man as Matt walks by.
Oh, man, I would love more J. Jonah Jameson. But like one thing that's always like a great kind of Daredevil Spider-Man difference is because Daredevil's aware of like the legal process that will follow like apprehending someone. Like you don't see Daredevil normally doing the I'm webbing somebody up and waiting for the cops to come
and like leaving
a
note. Yeah.
Because he recognizes like there's no evidence now that they like you have them caught, but the only person whose word they have to go on is a masked vigilante.
That depends on what it is, but depends on what it is.
Sure. I mean, like, and maybe there's like camera footage.
But I see your point. Yeah.
So it's like I think that's another kind of fun way for
in like the video game. Like Spider-Man comes in, does his job as far as protecting people and saving someone from a situation, and then always in the game he says like, "Better get out of here before the cops show up." It's like at that point, it's out of his hands. He kind of like, I stopped you. If you can get evidence, great. But all I know, I did my part. I stopped you. But you're right. Daredevil's like, if I don't have evidence or some way to bring them to justice, he's maybe not doing it.
So he's normally, I feel like which is also like Daredevil often is just like beating people within an inch of their life because he's like in like rage mode or he's like trying to get answers on something. Yeah. So it's also like he's not always. Yeah, it's a funny difference. Like you're never going to see Daredevil, especially in the show, like just leave a crook like nicely tied up because they're like probably somewhere with like all of their limbs broken.
Yeah. Okay, 60 seconds. I swear, then we're done. 60 equals last question.
Yeah.
In episode 1, when Matt threw Poindexter off the building, are we led to believe, was that indicating that Poindexter has special powers, superhuman powers, or he just somehow survived that? Like the fact that he took a breath and walked away.
I bet it's something with
that surgery.
Because I'm trying to remember now, but that's one of those status quos where he winds up with like it's like an adamantium spine or something that like to fix some injury. And I feel like they could have done something like that here, where it's like whatever they did. Kind of experimental procedure. I don't think totally he's like super strong,
but he's not totally human.
Yeah, I think it's like maybe he's just he's got like some added reinforcement or something. Because he looks totally fine at the court hearing.
Right. Yeah, he's healed. Now it had been some time, right? It had been time before they actually were doing the sentencing.
Like a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so
still,
he healed. Yeah. I thought that's what they were trying to indicate with how like aggressively he took his breath and survived. Like meaning like they were clearly showing this guy is dead. And then they did one of those moments of like and it's like, how is he alive? Kind of thing. And so that made me think like, are they just trying to say he got super lucky that he didn't die? Or like, no, Matt had every intention of killing him, but he's a little bit superhuman. You know what I mean? That's what I was kind of curious about.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I'm curious if we get any additional insight into that. But because it didn't change.
Because before that surgery, didn't you get the indication like he could die? Like Fisk paralyzes him. If he had kicked his face a few more times, he'd be dead. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Like I think he was just a normal guy that's with this like crazy accurate
thrower.
Yeah, but I think like Hawkeye, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, to that point, you don't get any sense in the fight with Daredevil that he's extra strong or anything.
No,
like
Daredevil.
I feel like
him,
Matt's
right?
still
Okay,
but
I love it.
Yeah, man. There are so many little things like that. I'm so. I bring up all these comics things, but what I love is they're mixing in so much that I actually don't know where it's going. So it is the dream because I don't feel like it's spoiling any of the plot. Because it's not like, oh, well, you know, it's good. Like this is going to happen, then this will happen. It's like, I don't know if they're going to now pull from this run to do this, or if they're going to do this, or if they're going to do something totally different, like kill Foggy, which is not anything from a comics run in that way. So I think I could not be more excited for the next two episodes we get. I say we, but we'll be back in real time. I think it's 2. episodes, right? Isn't this where we get 4 and 5?
Ooh, I'll double check that. Can you talk for one more second while I double check that? Because I know exactly where it is. Otherwise, wrap us up.
Well, no, I mean, and if that's the case,
that's a good point.
There's a chance that I might watch 4 and 5.
No. It's 3, and then 4, and then 5 and 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. So I know. What are we doing? I think I'm gonna watch episode 4. Not record an episode, but I think I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Yeah. No, I
maybe
think
5 and 6. Maybe.
I know,
maybe
man. I know.
But then,
I just want it so badly. I'm definitely gonna watch 4, and then we'll see how. I won't go beyond 5 and 6. But
okay. Text me first.
I will.
We don't want it to be over this fast either. That's the thing.
I know. But
I know.
We can go back through it.
I get it. Okay. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time here on Friends from Work.